But how can we do this? What decisions can we make today that will reduce the future risk of natural hazards, especially in a time of climate change? As an example, let's take Adelaide, the South Australian capital, which is home to about 1.3 million people. We modeled 5 different plausible futures for Greater Adelaide to explore the impacts of different risk reduction strategies. When considering natural hazard risks, most people think about bushfires and floods. These risks are likely to get worse as a result of climate change. While we certainly need to act now to reduce climate change impacts, this is largely beyond the control of local governments. But in Adelaide, for instance, if we allow more people to live near rivers, they are more likely to be exposed to floods. And if more people live in the Adelaide Hills, they are more likely to be exposed to bushfires. Further reading, higher density in a flood zone. Here's a way to do it and reduce the risks. Given the city's population is expected to grow, land use planning is an essential aspect of hazard risk reduction. Planning should ensure that development occurs in areas where hazards are less likely to occur. If there are no people or buildings in areas prone to bushfires or floods, then there is no risk. Local governments can also make decisions now that are likely to increase the resilience of communities and buildings that are exposed to hazards. For example, if building codes in Adelaide are changed today to require that all new buildings in bushfire-prone areas are built from non-combustible material, bushfire risk is unlikely to increase significantly. The risk might even decrease as old building stock is renewed. Similarly, community education and campaigns to increase volunteering rates can increase long-term community resilience. So the key to reducing risk is to understand that natural hazard risk is a combination of hazard, exposure and vulnerability. Figure 1. Figure 1. Elements of natural hazard risk. The hazard component of the risk triangle in Figure 1 corresponds to the likelihood that a hazard, such as a flood or bushfire, will actually occur at a particular location. If there is no hazard, there is no risk. Exposure refers to who or what is exposed to the hazard at a particular location, who or what is getting wet, for example, in the case of a flood. This could be people, industry, agriculture, buildings and critical infrastructure. So even if the hazard occurs at a particular location, if nothing of value is exposed to the hazard, there is no risk. Vulnerability corresponds to the impact or damage to people and assets that are exposed to a natural hazard event. For example, if a building is exposed to a bushfire, how the building is constructed has an impact on the resulting damage. Further reading, future bushfires will be worse, we need to adapt now. It is also vital to understand that long-term local planning decisions have greater potential to affect changes in exposure and vulnerability. This, then, is where we find the greatest opportunity for reducing long-term natural disaster risk. Given that risk reduction measures targeting exposure and vulnerability take time to take effect, it is vital that decisions affecting future risk are made now.